Hey everyone, I am so excited to be back again today with you live. This is awesome. It's a great opportunity for people to talk, and we're like in all different countries and different states and so forth, but yet we get to connect at noon on Tuesdays, and I'm super excited for that. For those of you who don't know, I am Stephanie Shaw, host of the podcast Hello Hot Flash. And I've had some amazing guests, Kim being one of them. And everyone that made the list, I asked to come back because the information they provided was just so valuable. And folks have said, hey, I've heard this person talk about XYZ, but I have another question. So that's why we're here today. We're coming to you live. If you have any questions or comments or anything, make sure you put them at the bottom in your notes there. And I will make sure that your questions get answered as we go through. We're just going to spend 15 minutes today talking about nutrition, because nutrition during perimenopause is so important. It completely changed my life. I was 2 years ill, changed what I ate, and it was like, boom, my whole life changed. So I'm so grateful for you being here today. And can you take this time and introduce yourself?
Yes, thank you for having me on again. So my name is Kim Juul, and I'm a registered dietitian and certified personal trainer. I've been doing this for like 15-ish years to lose track of time. I've worked in the weight loss realm for a while and also with sports nutrition. And then in the past couple of years, as I've gotten older and developed even more interest in women's hormones and the changes that happen, and just realized there's such a gap in the education for not only nutrition, but also fitness, and how we can actually make changes to make ourselves feel better as we're going through this transition from perimenopause to menopause to postmenopause. And it's not always just hormone replacement therapy, but it can be, diet and nutrition as well.
And that's super, super important. That's why I want to dig in a little bit. So you talked about your expertise, and I so appreciate that. Tell us what dietary changes should and or could be made during perimenopause.
So one really big one that I see that isn't happening a lot of times is protein intake. And so a lot of women who come to me will say, I make really healthy choices. I feel like I'm a healthy eater. But when we start digging into what they're actually eating, I see that they're not getting enough protein. And so in terms of protein, we're looking at about a gram of protein per pound of ideal body weight. Or if you know what your fat-free mass is, if you've done some sort of scan like an InBody or DEXA scan, then you get the fat-free mass. You want 1 gram per pound. So for most women, unless they're super petite, you're going to be getting around 30 grams of protein at mealtime or a little bit more. So that is super important, because our bodies are naturally prone to muscle breakdown as we get older, and especially as women because of the changing in our hormones. So that means we need to have more protein to build the muscle, to maintain the muscle. But not only that, protein is what we call one of those foods where the thermogenic effect, like the energy it takes to break it down, is higher than something like a processed food. If we eat bread, we kind of feel it being digested already in our mouth. And protein is satiating. So that for those reasons, it's a really important thing, especially women, when their hormones start to change, notice a little fat gain a lot of times. So that protein component is super important. Then in addition to that, we have changes in our gut health. So I'm sure you've probably talked to gut health experts, but our microbiome is such a big, important thing. And due to the changing, the estrogen getting lower, we start to have more of the bad bacteria populate and less of the good bacteria. And we know if you have an overpopulation of the bad bacteria, it can lead to a host of not good things happening. But in terms of our body composition, more bad bacteria lends itself to more fat gain or not losing fat. So we really want to increase our fiber and our healthy vegetables and fruits and whole grains. All those things have fiber, and they have what we call prebiotics. So prebiotics feeds the probiotics, and the probiotics is the healthy, feeding the healthy bacteria. So we really want to focus. It's not going no carb. I think a lot of people, as soon as they start to change, are like, oh my God, I got to cut out all the carbs. The carbs are going to make me fat or whatever. And it's not all carbs. choosing the right types of carbs. Yeah, it doesn't mean you can't never have a cookie again or something like that. You can, but of course the balance is really important. We want to make sure we're getting plenty of fruits, vegetables, and whole grain options. So, and fiber again helps you feel full. Your body has to use energy to break it down. So again, that's going to help with fat loss if you're having some of that fat gain. One really interesting thing I will say is cruciferous vegetables. These are, if you don't like cruciferous vegetables, these are broccoli, cauliflower, Brussels sprouts. Some people don't like them. If you do like them, definitely load up on them. If you don't, you can take a supplement called DIM, D-I-M, and that is basically just concentrated cruciferous vegetables. And what studies have shown is that it can help with balancing our estrogen, the estrogen that we do have, and it can also help with reducing belly fat. So, so there's lots of things we can do in terms of nutrition that are going to help with us through the transition. And then I guess the last component of that would be blood sugar regulation. We noticed that there is an increase in insulin resistance, meaning that we no longer respond to insulin, which is what pulls the blood sugar out of our bloodstream and all that as we used to. So for that reason, I think that is where maybe a lot of women get this idea that, oh, if I eat carbs, I get fat. Because if they are choosing the wrong balance, they're not balancing their carbs and proteins and fats, and they have an excess of carbohydrates and they're insulin resistant, yeah, your body's going to treat that differently. So maybe that plate of pasta you ate when you were 20, now you eat that plate of pasta, it shoots your blood sugars up, and you have a little insulin resistance, so it's going to fat stores instead of being used for energy. So, balancing the blood sugars. Again, it's all about making healthy choices, but not depriving ourselves. We want something sustainable. So really the principles that I would employ for somebody who's trying to be healthy are going to be very similar for someone who's going through perimenopause, with just maybe a couple tweaks there.
You talked about protein, so that's a struggle for me. So I don't eat meat, so it's an extra struggle for me as well. And so what does that average of 30 grams of protein, what does that look like on the plate?
Yeah, and if you don't eat meat, you can use vegetarian sources, right? So lentils are great, soy. I don't like the abundance of highly processed, like Beyond Meat products and things like that. Now, I understand people might want to include some of that because they get bored maybe with the normal. But if you can do, your pea protein, your some soy, the beans, the lentils, and you're even going to have some protein, small amounts of vegetables and fruits. But on a plate, if it's meat, 30 grams, I would say a palm is about, we say this is 4 ounces. So that's almost 30 grams. So like a little bit bigger than a palm size. So a little bit more than a quarter of your plate. Now, in terms of like, if you are a vegetarian, the thing about vegetarian protein is that it's not as bioavailable as something from a meat source. So your needs are increased a little bit more. Like, so if I aim for 140 grams of protein, of animal protein. If I was doing only vegetarian sources, I can't remember right at the moment what that translates to, but it would be, probably 20 or 30 grams on top of that. I would probably be more like 160 or something like that to be the equivalent of 140 in just, meat or animal sources. So yeah, your plate, the whole plate diagram that's been around for a while, a quarter protein, a quarter starchy carbs, and half of vegetables. I mean, that's a great diagram to go by. It might be a little bit more than a quarter on meat or on, protein sources. So
it's funny. It's like I eat all day long, and everyone's like, "How do you stay that size?" And you eat because of the type of food that I eat. I can't eat that much, but I also have to make sure that I'm getting my protein intake, and that's super important. I often talk about vegetarianism not being for the faint of heart. You kind of need to like cook. You have to watch what you're eating as well. But that protein intake, as you said, is super important.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So along with diet, and when we're perimenopause or even postmenopausal, or not even anywhere in there, our cardiovascular health is really important as well. So there's some school of thought that you need to eat more, exercise less, some school of thought that you need to start lifting weights as you get older. Tell us a little bit about what you've seen in your clients and what works best specifically as it relates to cardio health being perimenopausal.
Yeah. So this whole idea of eat more, exercise less, that model really doesn't work once we get into perimenopause and beyond. And I'll say that, but you'll see it all over social media. You'll see it even from big accounts that have scientific people talking. But the research that we're seeing in perimenopause is that women need calories to support their activity, and if they're not, you could be eating a good amount of calories, but if it's not around your activity, around your cardiovascular exercise or your strength training, you could still hold on to fat or not be losing fat. So it comes down to more than just the calories, but when you're eating them and what they're coming from. But as far as cardiovascular exercise goes, I do think we have to do some cardio even as we get older. I think that strength training should become the top priority, but that doesn't mean get rid of cardio. Now, we are seeing that strength training does have cardiovascular benefits. Like in the past, we used to just say, no, it doesn't have any, but no, we are seeing now in some research that it does have cardiovascular benefits. But we do want to include the cardio. But I think what the key with the cardio is not doing 2 hours of fitness classes every day. Things like that. Once again, your body, it puts it into a moderate zone. You're not pushing your all out hardest like a sprint, and you're not doing super easy. It'll feel hard, but it's not hard enough to be super hard, not easy enough to be easy. And in that moderate zone is where we produce more cortisol. And we already have higher levels of cortisol as our hormones change through perimenopause and postmenopause, and we don't want to add to that. And also, if we're not getting enough food coming in, then our body is just like holding on to the fat. So my recommendation is that your cardio sessions are intense, but they're short. You can do HIIT, high intensity interval training, or even what we call SIT, which is sprint interval training. Both of those are going to be very effective for helping with, to create more insulin sensitivity in your muscles. They're going to help with your brain function, because we know that we have cognition that goes down due to several things going on in the body. And it's going to help with reducing the fat, abdominal fat, or total body fat. So when I say HIIT or SIT, I'm talking 20 to 30 minutes total. Now, if you go to like a fitness class, it's like, 45, 60 minutes. That's not a true HIIT or SIT class, because you can't hit that intensity for that long of a period of time. It becomes more of a moderate cardio. It's not to say maybe at some point in the class you are hitting some really high breathless points, but you can't keep that up. Like nobody can keep that up indefinitely. So you can have, and when I'm talking HIIT or SIT, 2 to 3 times a week. And then if you want to do some easy stuff, walking, something but not where you're getting out of breath, where you can talk, or cycling where it's easy and you can talk. That stuff is fine to put in there as well. Plenty of steps, every day. But it's this idea of polarizing the training, like really hard or easy, and staying away from that middle ground. And that's what I find is most effective in terms of cardio, and good for, heart health and all that as well.
That's interesting. That's some really good feedback, because like you said, it's so different, the messages that we're hearing.
Yes.
And I think part of that also becomes that we need to be aware of what our body is telling us that we need. So there's some customization involved as well, is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
I don't see any comments or anything now, and it might be because I'm looking in the wrong place. Let's look real quick if I can find if anyone has any questions so far. 'Cause this is good stuff, you guys. This is amazing stuff. Don't see any comments right now. So I'm going to circle back real quick and ask one quick question around, you talk about eating around exercise. So should we be eating before? Should we eat after? Both times? What does that look like?
Yeah, both. So we definitely want to get something in our bodies before we exercise to let our body know, like, hey, here's some food. You don't need to be in fat storing mode I'm giving you energy. And so I know sometimes people will be like, well, I feel upset stomach or this or that if I eat too soon. It's not a lot of food. So we just want to get about 10 to 15 grams of protein before our workout. So that could be, half a scoop of protein powder mixed into your coffee or something like that if you want a little boost. It could be, I don't know, like a hard-boiled eggs is around 7 grams of protein. It could be like a little bit of cottage cheese, a little bit of Greek yogurt. It doesn't have to be a ton, just something to kind of give your body those amino acids, because that's what builds the muscle and will help prevent that muscle breakdown. And it'll also bring our cortisol down a little bit when we have a little food coming in. So if it's before a strength training or a cardio session, a little bit of protein and then a little carb is good too, to give us some energy. Now, if you're just, if you're like, well, I'm just going for like a very easy walk with the dog. Well, I don't think that you necessarily need the food, but anything where it's depleting you, a hit, a sit, doesn't matter if it's just a 20-minute workout, it's depleting you of energy, you need a little food. And then of course, right after the workout, you want 30 to 40 grams of protein. That's the most important, getting that protein in to stop the muscle breakdown, to tell your body, don't break down muscle. We're gonna build the muscle, we're gonna repair. And then, carbs are of course important, but the most important thing is getting that protein in right after the workout. And then you can, have a regular meal or whatever you want, depending on what time of day it is. If it's an early morning workout and you're like, I've tried, I can't tolerate it. I will say that, getting anything in your system is better than nothing. So even if it's just like a quarter of a piece of toast, like getting just a little something or some fruit, little fruit snacks, like that's not the ideal thing to eat, but it would give your body a little of something at least. So I think that makes a huge difference. A lot of times women, it depends what stage of life they're in, but a lot of times women get up and they're busy in the morning, like maybe getting kids off to school or rushing around, helping everybody. They forget to eat breakfast or they don't have time. They go to work out, then they finish their workout and they go straight to running an errand or something like that. Or maybe it's, you're a working mom, you get up super early, you don't eat because it's super early. And then you're getting ready to go to work. And then before you know it, it's like 3 hours after your workout, you're sitting at your desk and you're like, I never ate anything. And that is not good for fat loss, and that is not good for muscle building. So avoiding those type of pitfalls.
This is amazing. I love this conversation, Kim. I want you to take us out by giving us your final thoughts around this. What stands out to you or what do you think we should be listening to as part of this conversation?
Yeah, I think we have to be our own advocates as we enter these years of perimenopause. I still think there's a lot of education. Women don't realize they're in perimenopause. They're like, I'm 40, I'm fine. Like perimenopause can start 10 years before the actual change, right? So be your own advocate. Know that if you want to go on hormone replacement therapy, that's one option, but you could also be using supplements. You can be using diet and exercise. In fact, I think you need all of those things, not just the one thing. So, looking at accounts where there's people credible that have knowledge about perimenopause and menopause, and don't just listen to the recommendations that are for the general population, which general population is usually geared more towards men. So we are not small men and we don't function the same way, So, and if anyone, of course, visit my page if you have any questions. I do try to put up educational reels most days and posts like that to help people out. So,
where can folks find you?
I said Kim Juul Nutrition, KIMJUUL Nutrition, on Instagram, on Facebook. That's where I'm the most active. And so, yeah, I would love to have any questions that anybody has and help you out.
I appreciate that. I'm going to check one more time real quick and see if we have any questions. And I'm not seeing any, which, kind of maybe doesn't mean anything because I'm still getting the hang of this Facebook Live thing. But
we
I
may
think
not
they
even
know.
be live. No, we are. I can see we're live.
Yeah, I know, right? And so the funniest thing is it'll be after the recording, I'm like, wait, there was a comment there. So
yeah, right. Then we can address it.
Yeah. You can always come back and address it.
Yeah.
I thank you so much for your time. Folks, I am going to, this will be on my YouTube channel, and my name on YouTube is @ Hello Hot Flash podcast. So we'll have this video up there. And then I'm going to also link, I think I can do that on YouTube. I'll link your episode, your podcast episode, so someone can get even more details around you and
Awesome.
around the work that you do. So Kim,
Yeah.
thank you so much once again, and you make it a great day.
Thank you. Have a
All
great
right.
day.
You too.
Bye.
Everyone, here's to your health.